sports. A bridge that brings people together. And here in the Commonwealth, it's no different. From the gridiron to the hardwood and beyond, we all have a team we love to talk about. Now for the teams you care about, here's Heartland Sports Live with Trevor Rice.
Yes, it is another Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio 1400 AM, and we are live streaming this afternoon also, ESPNRadio1061.com. You can also go back and listen and follow along every show on the Apple Podcast link that I have on my Twitter account. You can follow me at Radio Trevor Rice on Twitter, and you can like me on Facebook as well, Trevor Rice on Air. Make sure you're following ESPN as well on social media at ESPN Radio 1061 on Twitter, ESPN Radio 106.1 on Facebook as well. Well, a lot to talk about from the weekend. Of course, we have a big matchup going on this Friday night, in which I'll get to here in just a moment. But we got to talk Tennessee Titans action. They get a win against the Chargers at home yesterday. Ryan Tannehill, the starting quarterback. No, not Marcus Mariota. Ryan Tannehill, you know, that guy who came up from the Miami Dolphins who, you know, they kind of got sick of him. Well, he came up and I believe passed for over 300 yards yesterday. We'll talk about that game coming up later this hour. The Hilltoppers picking up their fourth straight victory on Saturday as they defeated Charlotte on homecoming. Kentucky was in a tough one as they lost. They were shut out Saturday against Georgia. We'll talk about that later on. And Louisville having a tough go at home against number 3 Clemson on Saturday, just up the road from us here in E-Town. We'll talk about all of that coming up later in the hour. Let's reserve this segment, though, for high school football, which, I got to say, this Friday night has me excited. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. 2 8-0 teams going at it. North Hardin, Central Hardin. 2 teams that, for the most part, they're a little bit different from each other in how they do things. Even though we're starting to see a passing game develop a little more with Central this year, it's going to be a fun atmosphere. A lot of folks are going to make the trip from Radcliffe. Cecilia always packs the house whenever they can. It is going to be amazing Friday night, and I am very fortunate that Bobby Thompson and I get to call the game. It's going to be a lot of fun, which you can catch the action with the Blaine and Birdwhistle High School football game of the week this Friday night, 7:30 p.m. kickoff, 7:05 is the pregame, and you can listen to it 106.1 FM, 1400 AM, and we will also live stream at ESPNRadio1061.com. Friday night, Central, North, 2 undefeated clubs. And how did they get there? Well, let's talk about Friday's games. North Hardin first. Let's talk about their 55-12 victory. And I don't think it was really a surprise that they took care of business down at Barron County because, well, if you saw what Central did 2 Fridays ago, you kind of saw this coming because just looking and getting to watch both of these teams throughout the regular season so far, I can tell that they're clearly the class when it comes to not only our area, but a majority of the state. When you have that much Division I talent or just kids who are going to the next level in general, playing at the college level with both what Central and North have, you kind of figure that they're going to, do well on Friday nights right now here this season. And this is one of those seasons where you have to go all in with it, in which the kids did for North Hardin. We're talking after their playoff loss last year. They're like, Coach, a couple of days later, open up the weight room. We're getting in there, and we're going to be better next year. And that's where this North Hardin team has been. They have been better this year, ever since the beginning. Yes, they had some quarterback issues. They didn't know exactly where they were going in that situation. But ever since Manny Wimberly has pretty much taken over this offense, North Hardin's offense has just elevated themselves to a whole different level, in which they needed to. They needed to if they're going to compete with teams like Central Hardin or some of the teams that they're going to face in the postseason. Because they can't, whereas defense wins championships, you can't rely on the defense necessarily to bail you out every single game. You have to be able to put up some offense. Just ask all the NFL franchises right now, even college and the pro levels right now have gone offensive heavy. If you don't have an offense that can light up the scoreboard, you might as well not even field the team, because defense, football is just not a defensive game anymore, to put it simple. Are there defensive teams? Yes, I will not deny that. But football is not a defensive game anymore. It's more, it's gravitated more towards the offensive side of the ball. A lot of the rules that have been put into effect have really helped out and benefited the offensive side of the football, because, well, when teams are scoring, action is happening, and people are viewing or watching, and more money can go into the game. So, I get it. I get it, especially all the rules that have gone into effect in at all levels to protect the quarterback and make sure that these players are safe out on the field. I get it. The defense has kind of taken a hit because, well, they can't apply the hit like they used to be able to. But North Hardin, over the last 5-week stretch, they have been averaging well over 40 points a game. In fact, just looking at the numbers, if I were to take a guess, I'd say they're probably averaging like 46, maybe 45, 46 points a game, just judging by the last 5 weeks of just their performance. Scoring 55 on Friday night against Barron County to their 12, and there were some sloppy moments there in the first half from North Hardin, just judging by what the News Enterprise was saying on their Twitter account, and just going back and forth with Bobby Friday night when we were calling the E-Town LaRue game. But I don't know what the coaching staff did, but they got it together, and they started to really click in that second half to win big, 55-12. Manny Wimberly, I don't have the stat sheet here in front of me. I've been waiting for them to upload that, but Manny Wimberly, since coming in, getting comfortable, and just knowing he's only a sophomore, this kid is going to be special for the next couple of years. He's got a rocket arm. It seems like he doesn't have to put any effort into it. He just stands in the pocket. Just with the flick of a wrist, it seems like it's going 40 yards, no problem. So the kid has a good arm. He's starting to get accurate, and this coaching staff is able to trust his ability. And when you have Lavelle Wright out of the backfield, and you have Josh Moore, one of your big receivers downfield, when you have that kind of, when you have players like that, of that caliber, they're able to assist a young quarterback like Manny Wimberly is, it just makes them that much more dangerous. Plus, you look at a young quarterback, they don't know any better, right? He hasn't been in the situation very long to know any better. Could that hurt them down the road? Possibly. But right now, they're having fun. 55-12 Friday night. Central Hardin. Let's look at their stat sheet. 43-7 over Meade County. They took care of business once again. And you want to talk about a quarterback who's feeling it right now? Chase Elmore. Only 14 pass attempts on Friday night, completed 10 of them. 323 yards through the air. 2 of those going for touchdowns. You want to talk about a dangerous team? This offense is dangerous, especially if you don't protect or guard, I should say, Gavin George, which a lot of people can't. He's tall. He could probably outjump a majority of the people out on the field he's with. 7 catches on Friday night for 286 yards, had 2 touchdowns on the evening. I'm just saying, I would love those fantasy numbers, because that'd give me like 40 points in fantasy, and I could definitely dig that. Through the running game, Kyler Lee doing a good job, 10 rushes for 48 yards. He had 3 touchdowns Friday night. Trajan Sanders, 7 carries for 26, had a touchdown on the evening as well, as Central Hardin just easily going past Meade County. Meade County's not having the ideal season. ever since winning their first couple of ball games, have dropped 5 straight. And now we have Central Hardin and North Hardin this Friday night, 7:30 p.m. Once again, ESPN Radio 106.1 on Twitter. Follow us, and keep up to date with the game. You can also go to ESPNRadio1061.com, listen to the game on Friday night, and you can also 106.1 FM, 1400 AM, 7:30 p.m. Bobby Thompson and I will bring you the call of that game. But I would be shocked if there isn't more schools looking at these Central Hardin players. With the accuracy in which Chase Elmore is throwing, now granted, if everybody had a Gavin George, it would just make life easier. And then you have Deonka Wilkerson in the backfield. So, I mean, we're going to have a good skill position matchup. I want to see how Wilkerson and George do compared to Lavelle Wright and Josh Moore. You have to kind of give the edge to Central on the offensive side, maybe, just for the fact that they have a senior quarterback as opposed to Manny Wimberly, who's a sophomore, even though Manny Wimberly is not playing like a sophomore quarterback right now. He's playing more like a senior at this point. It's going to be fun. Really, really fun to watch. I would say that if you're talking different looks, especially out of the backfield, Central Hardin may have an advantage in that category just for the fact that they're able to utilize, an extra guy or two. Like Kyler Lee, once they hand the football off to him, he has one mission, and that's to just bull you over. Like, he just runs people over. And I would not be surprised if they go to him down in goal line situations this Friday night. And do we see more of a defensive game? That's going to be my question, because you look at what Central did against Barron County, shutting them out 38-0, and this North Hardin team only allowing 12 points on Friday night against Barron County. Man, if you're Barron County right now, like, you were feeling good about this season at 5-1, and then you just get rolled over by Central and North, and you slapped back into reality, you got to be feeling pretty miserable today if you're Barron County. But this is going to be a fun matchup. I would say that you could possibly give the offensive advantage to Central. You can give the defensive advantage to North this Friday night. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this game, because I feel like it can be a high-scoring game, but I feel like it's not going to be a high-scoring game necessarily. Like, I feel like this game might be in the 20s. Tops. Like a 28-24 type game. Like, that's what I'm legitimately feeling. And I don't even know who to say who I think's going to win. In fact, I'm not even going to say who I think's going to win, because I don't know who's going to win. Now, I could throw a name out there, in which maybe some of you are wanting me to throw a name out there, in which if you're going to force me to say who I think is going to win, yes, Central has home field advantage. But I think ultimately the better defense wins this game, and I think North, just on paper, I can't even say that, because Central's looked dang good defensively here lately too, pitching a shutout against Barron County, only allowing a 7 against Meade County. But consistently, North's defense has been doing a solid job all season long, even though Central's has improved over the last couple of weeks. I would say, just because of what I've seen, I would say the defensive advantage goes to North, and that's why I would kind of lean towards North winning this game, even though it's going to be a tall order to go in there. And first of all, you're going to be taking on, I think everybody in Cecilia is going to be at this game, first of all. And we're going to have a lot of people making the trip from Radcliffe for this one. I would be surprised if there's not people basically wrapping around this field Friday night, because it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun game, and it's going to be loud. And you're going to tell who has the positive play, because it's either going to be on the near side where we're going to be, which is going to be the home side, or you're going to hear a lot of noise over on the Radcliffe side. And I cannot wait. Friday night, 7:30 p.m. So I guess if you were to force an answer out of me, who do I think wins this game? I will say, based on the defense, not the offense, because I think both teams offensively have looked tremendous right now. Defensively, knowing that North has their guys only playing one way, where Central has guys playing both ways, I think if you look at it through a 4-quarter stretch, they're going to have the advantage. And so I would have to give the advantage to North because their guys specifically need to focus, only get to focus or have to focus on defense. So I think whereas Central has some guys going both ways, I think you have to give the advantage to the team on the defensive side of the ball who has guys who only focus on the defensive side of the ball, and that's North Hardin. But it's not going to be a lopsided victory. It's going to be very close. Like I said, a 28-24 type of ball game. I feel like I would be surprised if the game gets into the 40s. I do think there's going to be some points scored, but I don't think it's going to be like, a light up the scoreboard type of game where we have record numbers for a high school football game. Even though that would be a fun game to call. It'd be a fun game to call. I just don't feel like it's going to go that way. So I give the advantage defensively to North, which I think could be the outcome. But we're going to see. It's going to be fun regardless. And we're going to see these kids really get to showcase themselves on a big stage. I would be surprised if there isn't multiple media outlets at this game because it's going to mean so much. You have two teams this late in the season here in Hardin County, both 8-0 going at it in Cecilia. And like I said, I'm very fortunate that I get to be there. Friday night, Elizabethtown, our game of the week this past Friday, took care of LaRue County by the score of 41-7. Kind of similar to what last year's regular season game between those two clubs were, which those two teams very well could easily be meeting each other, possibly in the postseason, which we know how that went. So we'll see how that goes. Clay Games on Friday night, 5 of 9, 99 yards, 1 touchdown. Didn't need to do anything spectacular, but it was efficient enough. Joseph Becker having a big night, 8 rush attempts, 117 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the night. Cameron McNeil had some action out of the backfield as well, 6 rush attempts, 70 yards, 1 touchdown, as Elizabethtown took care of LaRue County on Friday night, 41-7. You just look at that; those two teams, and I was talking to Ryan Metzger, who calls the games for LaRue County. I mean, we could see these two teams meet in the postseason, maybe the first round, and that could be interesting. We saw how that game turned out, third round of the playoffs last year. It was a fun atmosphere. So I mean, we'll see. And we could possibly see Central and North meet each other again after this Friday night, maybe in the postseason. So we got some good matchups that could be developing here in the near future. Let's look elsewhere. John Hardin was in action on Friday night as they picked up a 24-6 victory over Marion County, picking up their third win on the season. Now they're 3-5. They have 2 games left: Spencer County and Greenwood. And I don't know. I feel like John Hardin could still possibly win the rest of their games this season and make things interesting there in Class 4A and make things fun in the postseason. So we'll see how the Bulldogs do moving forward, as there's no stat sheet up there for me to look at yet, so I apologize for that. As Fort Knox was also in action on Friday night, as the Eagles, I think, were trying to pick up their third victory on the season. Unfortunately fell to Holy Cross out of Louisville. You know, that was a tall task, losing 54-6 on Friday night. As we just look at some of the stats real quick from Fort Knox, James Rousey went 5 of 9, 26 yards, had a touchdown pass. Salter Zanders out of the backfield had 6 rush attempts for 12 yards, as it was just a tough go. When you're taking on a club that clearly just outmatches you, it's going to be a tall task for your program to go in there and get a victory. And, well, that's exactly what happened. 54-6, the final score there. As that will do it pretty much looking at the high school level for this hour. Once again, the Blandon Birdwhistle High School football game of the week is happening this Friday night, and 7:30 p.m. is the kickoff, 7:05 is the pregame. Join Bobby Thompson and I. It's going to be a fun one as the Central Hardin Bruins host the North Hardin Trojans, and you can listen to it on 106.1 FM, 1400 AM, and we are live streaming that game, ESPN Radio 1061.com. Well, coming up, we still have to talk some college football this hour. I still need to get to the Tennessee Titans. The Bengals are a disaster right now. The Colts picking up another victory. Jacoby Brissett, is he the future? I think the Colts are pretty convinced that he's going to be the main guy leading that team moving forward. We'll talk all the area NFL franchises. We'll talk some college football this hour as well with the Cardinals, Wildcats, and the Hilltoppers. This is Heartland Sports Live, and you're listening to 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we are live streaming once again this afternoon, ESPN Radio 1061.com. Back with more after this.
This is Stephanie Grimes, Vice President of Elizabethtown Area Youth Cheerleading, and you're listening to Heartland Sports Live with Trevor Rice on 106.1 ESPN Radio.
Welcome back into Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we are live streaming once again on ESPN Radio 1061.com. This hour is presented by our good friends at CC Power Sports. Exit 121 just south of the Snyder at Brooks Road off I-65. Get your hands on a new or pre-owned Suzuki ATV, motorcycle, or scooter while the deals are hot. That's CC Power Sports, a short drive up I-65 in Shepherdsville. We talked high school football in the last segment. Let's get to the pro side now. We'll talk college football to wrap up this hour as we'll get to the Cardinals, the Wildcats, and the Hilltoppers a little bit later on. Let's talk some area pro football, though, between the Tennessee Titans, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Cincinnati Bengals. And let's just say for two out of those three teams, it has not been a good season so far. The Colts, however, with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback now moving forward, getting a big victory, 30-23, as they took on a AFC South opponent in the Houston Texans yesterday, dropping the Texans down to 4-3. The Colts improved to 4-2. As we just look at their stats real quick, as this game, it was one of those deals where Jacoby Brissett seemed like he couldn't do anything wrong. In fact, having 4 touchdowns, putting up some pretty good fantasy numbers. Went going 26 of 39, 326 yards, had 4 touchdowns yesterday, as Marlon Mack out of the backfield had 18 carries for 44 yards. Jordan Wilkins had 2 carries for 9 yards. Zach Pascal was the leading receiver yesterday for the Colts, having 6 receptions for 106 yards. T.Y. Hilton also had 6 grabs for 74, and 2 touchdowns for Pascal. Hilton had 1 touchdown, and Eric Ebron had 4 catches for 70 yards and 1 touchdown yesterday as well. A pretty good day for the Indianapolis Colts offensively, as Deshaun Watson went 23 of 34, 308 yards, had 1 touchdown, 2 picks yesterday. Carlos Hyde, it was a rough day for him, only averaging 2.9 yards a carry, 12 carries for 35 yards yesterday. Duke Johnson out of the backfield had 7 carries for 34 yards. DeAndre Hopkins had 106 yards through the air off of 9 catches and a touchdown. And Kenny Stills, who came over to the Texans from the Dolphins, had 4 grabs for 105 yards yesterday. So those are the main stat lines coming from the Indianapolis Colts win, as they won 30-23 over the Houston Texans, and now pretty much control their own destiny moving forward in the AFC South, which another AFC South team and the Tennessee Titans yesterday, they were in action against the LA Chargers. I keep wanting to call them the San Diego Chargers. That's where they should be, people, not Los Angeles, which is a fake sports town. 23-20, the Titans won yesterday. Of course, we're Titans affiliates. You heard the game yesterday afternoon with Mike Keith on the call. And you look at this game, and it was without, guess who? Marcus Mariota was not in there. In fact, a pretty accurate Ryan Tannehill on Sunday led the charge. We're going 23 of 29, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, did have 1 INT. But is Ryan Tannehill the future for what Mike Vrabel and this staff is looking for? I mean, I don't know if he's the answer necessarily, but he's 1-0 as a starter for the Titans. I guess that's all you can ask for, right? Granted, it is the Chargers who look like a dumpster fire at this point. They're 2-5. I think that was their 3rd straight loss, possibly. The Chargers, that is. And I just don't see that franchise going anywhere anytime soon. I don't even know if you can blame Phillip Rivers necessarily. I think it's just overall a bad team. We'll just go with that. Derrick Henry on Sunday, 22 carries for 90 yards, averaging just over 4 yards a carry. Had 1 touchdown yesterday as well. And receiving, Corey Davis getting some action. He's one of those guys where I feel like he should be a number 1 wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. He just has not had the opportunity to showcase himself. He had 6 catches yesterday, had 80 yards through the air. That's an average of just over 13 yards a catch. Had 1 touchdown as well, which I had him on my bench on my fantasy football team. Would have done me some good to have him start. That's 14 fantasy points I missed out on yesterday. A.J. Brown had 6 catches for 64 yards. Jonnu Smith had 3 grabs for 64 yards. So they were moving the ball pretty effectively. I think the biggest stat line is just a quarterback who, this coaching staff could trust to throw it 29 times, and B, the accuracy in which Ryan Tannehill completed the football yesterday. 23 catches made yesterday, spreading it out to a whole bunch of different guys. 2 touchdowns. In fact, when I say a whole bunch of different guys, I mean they had 8 different guys catch a ball yesterday, including Kevin Byard. Derrick Henry had a grab, Tajay Sharp, Anthony Firkser in there, Adam Humphries. So, I mean, spreading the ball out mainly between maybe 4 different guys. But still, you have that kind of production through the air. It just makes you that much more balanced offensively and makes the running game that much more efficient with Derrick Henry, too, when it's all said and done, who had 22 carries. I don't know if Derrick Henry can sustain that kind of workload over a long period of time, but he is a pretty stout back. He's played at Alabama. He could take a couple of hits, just like Ingram can over for the Ravens. Seems like those Alabama running backs are just big boys, and they can hit just as well as take a hit. I don't know what they feed them down there at the University of Alabama, but they bring those big boys in, and they're able to run the football and block and do whatever else Alabama players do. Because, well, when you're recruiting 4- and 5-star athletes all the time, I guess it makes it pretty easy to win championships on a consistent basis, like what Nick Saban has done. So 23-20, the Titans picking up a victory, their 3rd one on the season. They improved to 3-4. As coming up for the Tennessee Titans, they will take on the Buccaneers at home. That will be this Sunday, which you can catch all the action with Mike Keith with the Titans pregame coverage at noon, 1 p.m. kickoff. And it's Jameis Winston. Do the Buccaneers start Jameis Winston? That's going to be my main question. Because he's coming off of a game where he just threw 5 interceptions against the Panthers, in which I mentioned the Panthers. That'll be the next team the Panthers play at, or the Titans play after that. They'll play the Panthers. That'll be a 1 p.m. kickoff next week. So a couple of NFC South opponents over the next couple of weeks. I feel like they can beat the Buccaneers at home, get back to the 500 mark. And then the Panthers game is pretty interesting just for the fact that McCaffrey is one of those elusive backs that if you don't contain him, he can hurt you on any given Sunday. So that's going to be a fun one to watch. Plus, the Panthers still working with a backup quarterback where I think they may decide to go with him as the primary quarterback here. Cam Newton could be out. In fact, if Cam Newton's out, I actually saw one thing where somebody was saying that possibly Cam Newton could land in Nashville, which I don't know how that would work necessarily, because, I mean, if you're giving up Marcus Mariota and you go for a guy in Cam Newton, I mean, maybe Cam Newton will have something to prove. I have no idea. But regardless, maybe Ryan Tannehill's the guy. They don't even need to think about another quarterback. I guess we'll see. Only time will tell, right? The Cincinnati Bengals, their fans not happy, booing, leaving the game early yesterday. The team 0-7. You know, we gave a lot of criticism to Marvin Lewis. Maybe he was dealing with such a garbage team, we should be impressed with what he was doing. I'm not a believer in Andy Dalton, first of all. I don't think he's a top-tier quarterback. I just don't. I think he is a game manager, which he can't even be that at this point, because the team is just, let's call it what it is. They're just a giant poop emoji at this point. And when you start off the season 0-7, the fans are frustrated. The team gets frustrated. In fact, how that team has not imploded yet is beyond me. Losing to the Jaguars yesterday, 27-17. Of course, I'd be frustrated too if I was losing to a quarterback that dressed like a clown and was known more for his mustache, his Tom Selleck mustache, than he was for like his actual playing ability. Which I guess Gardner Minshew has done a couple of things out on the field, but come on. Come on, guy. It's not that impressive. 27-7, the Jaguars beat the Bengals. And I guess Marvin Lewis right now is being considered, this quote here, serious consideration for an NFL coaching vacancy right now, which would just be insane. Could you imagine Marvin Lewis taking a head coaching job somewhere and then just taking that team to the next level? Could you imagine how irate the Cincinnati fan base would be? First of all, they'd be asking the question, why couldn't you do that for us, Marvin? But maybe that was the best he could give the Bengals, knowing that he had Andy Dalton as his quarterback and he had a team that, to be honest, just wasn't ready for the postseason. That'd be an interesting story for next year if he takes over a coaching gig somewhere and then all of a sudden that team becomes relevant and makes the postseason in their first year under Marvin Lewis. That'd be kind of a slap in the face to the Bengals organization, if you ask me. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy sitting here just watching football and just seeing how it all goes down. And if Marvin Lewis gets another job, which it seems like the NFL has turned to, you know, all these younger guys. Well, I think we're seeing how that's playing out right now. It's not necessarily going in the favor of those guys because, well, a lot of them struggling. Even though Arizona seems to be clicking a little bit more now, and it's not working well for Zach Taylor, who's 0-7, even though the ownership believes in Zach Taylor. But it hasn't been a good start for him. He didn't have any head coaching experience beforehand, which I thought that was an interesting hire to begin with, just for the fact that his name just kind of came from nowhere. And then all of a sudden he's thrown into a head coaching gig. I guess the Arizona Cardinals situation with Cliff Kingsbury kind of threw me off too, because he goes from having a disaster at Texas Tech University where he can't provide a winning season, to he goes and becomes a coordinator at USC and then takes a head coaching job with the Cardinals. Like, I just don't understand the mindset of some of these guys who own these NFL franchises right now. It's like they see somebody else do something and they have to hop on board and try to get the next best young guy as a head coach. But maybe that old guy sitting on his rocking chair on the front porch yelling at the kids to get off his lawn is going to do the job. Marvin Lewis. Actually, I don't see him being that type of guy, but still, that's what I want to picture him as. Comes in to a team that really desperately needs him, and it's the old guy getting all the attention now, saying that he can still coach and that he can be better than all of the younger talent. It's like the veteran backup quarterback who comes in and just wants to prove everybody wrong, which Mariota may get that chance here in the future. When the Tennessee Titans release him, he could get that chance elsewhere. He could have, and which a lot of fans, it is unbelievable the amount of fan support that Marcus Mariota has down in Nashville. Even with all the mediocrity that he's provided for that franchise, they still believe that he is a top-tier guy. He is the leader you want, and he deserves better. Tennessee Titans fans want to see him go elsewhere just to be given a second chance and feel like that a situation away from Nashville is going to be better for him. Which maybe they're onto something. I don't know. I just don't know. But that's a look at what's going on here in the pro football side of things here nearby. And, we'll see where it continues to go. The AFC South is kind of open now. Now the Texans lost yesterday. The Colts win. Maybe the Titans can climb back into things. I mean, they're not that far back right now. The Bengals, they're out of contention and everything. In fact, the Bengals may just want to drop every other game this season and just go for the first round pick and trying to get a new quarterback next year. That's probably their best option at this point. That's what I would do. Actually, I wouldn't. I'm competitive. I would have to go out there and try to win games every single Sunday. I never understood that mindset where you pretty much just give up on the season and you pretty much just tank. I don't understand that mindset. How do you get paid millions of dollars and then not want to showcase that you're worth those millions of dollars out on the field? How can you just go and just tank? I don't get it. I really don't. I'm also not getting paid millions of dollars, though. I'd like to be paid millions of dollars to be 0-7. That'd be great, wouldn't it? I think we could all go for that, because then even if we're fired, we're still a millionaire. So I mean, we're looking at a good situation regardless. Trevor Rice with you. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio 1400 AM. We are also live streaming on ESPN Radio 1061.com. Some college football action going on over the weekend. Let's come back after the break and talk about it. The Cardinals, the Wildcats in tough top 10 matchups on Saturday. The Hilltoppers trying to go for 4 straight. Did they? We'll talk about it coming up after this. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio.
Hey, this is Ryan Lemon from Kentucky Sports Radio, and you're listening to Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio.
Welcome back into Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio 1400 AM. We are also live streaming on ESPN Radio 1061.com. And we've already talked high school football this hour, NFL football with all the area teams, Bengals, Colts, Titans last segment. Let's talk college football now with the Cardinals and the Wildcats, who were in tough matchups over the weekend. The Hilltoppers were going for 4 straight. Homecoming for the Hilltoppers down in Bowling Green on Saturday as they won 30-14, improving to 5-2. Man, don't you just wish they could have that Central Arkansas win or that game back so that they could check that off as a victory? They could be 6-1 right now. I guess you could say that's like bowl eligible, but technically I think for a Conference USA team that might not be bowl eligible. They would have to have a 7th victory, but still, it'd be nice to think about them only needing one more victory for the rest of the season, which I feel like they can easily get another win on the year. I feel like they're good enough they can beat Marshall. I feel like they can beat Middle Tennessee, too, this defense, that is. As long as their defense keeps performing at the level they have been, they'll be fine. Let's look at Western Kentucky on Saturday. Ty Story, 21 of 30, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns. A pretty decent day for him. As out of the backfield, guys, Walker had 21 carries, 70 yards. That's a category they've needed to improve in quite a bit, the Hilltoppers, that is the running game. I feel like that if they could get that ground game working more efficiently, then their offense could consistently put up 30, 40 points a game, somewhere in there. Unfortunately, the ground game just has not been there at times this season, and so they've struggled a little bit in that aspect of their offensive game planning. Lucky Jackson had 5 catches. You just knew he was going to have a breakout game one of these days. 141 yards on Saturday, averaged just over 28 yards a catch. Had 1 touchdown on Saturday. Jakar Pearson had 7 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown, as well as the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers ran away with it, winning 30-14, improving their overall record to 5-2, dropping the Charlotte 49ers to 2-5. And now looking ahead for the Hilltoppers, like I said, they still have some games that are winnable. I feel like they're good enough they can beat Marshall this weekend on the road. 2:30 p.m. kickoff. You'll be able to catch the action right here on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM as well, as the Hilltoppers will take on the Marshall Thundering Herd. Western Kentucky then will take on Florida Atlantic, another team that I feel like that Western could beat. I honestly think the next 2 games are winnable. Then they go on the road and to play Arkansas. I think that's going to be a tough challenge, obviously. They play Southern Mississippi, and they play Middle Tennessee. So I think 3 of their the remaining 5 games they can win. They can win against everybody else who they play in Conference USA. Which, wouldn't that be something? Under this new coaching staff who came in and had to take over what was a terrible team for the past couple of seasons. They couldn't score. Their defense wasn't good at times. Now they come in. They're 5-2 at this point. Heck, they've already upset a team in Army. Who's to say they don't upset Southern Mississippi on the road? Because if they can beat Army, they can sure as heck beat Southern Mississippi with this defense. I think the one game that's going to be a loss for sure is that Arkansas game. But I don't even think Arkansas is that good either. Wouldn't that be something? To go over there, take on the Razorbacks in a hostile environment, and you beat them in their own house. That would be amazing. Which I got to say, driving through that area, I don't know if you've ever driven through the Fayetteville area. It's beautiful over there. Recommend it. Northwest corner of Arkansas. Basically from Fort Smith all the way up to Fayetteville. I'd say that whole area is pretty beautiful. I would recommend the drive if you ever have a chance to go up there. I think you'll enjoy it anyway. But the Hilltoppers 5-2, looking to improve that record against Marshall on the road this weekend over in West Virginia. 2:30 p.m. kickoff. Join Randy Lee. 1:30 p.m. will be the pregame coverage here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. The Kentucky Wildcats had a tough go on Saturday, taking on number 10 Georgia, who I got to say was probably upset about that loss to South Carolina a couple of weekends ago. Losing 21-0, the Wildcats just couldn't get anything going on offense. And Lynn Bowden, 2 of 15, 17 yards. They just couldn't get anything going. Bowden rushing, 17 carries for 99 yards. When you don't have a passing game, it just makes life miserable. Miserable. Defense just out on the field for way too long. Georgia eventually at home, winning 21-0, which if you're a Bulldogs fan, you're not even proud of that. You're happy with a victory, but you're not even proud of the fact that you beat a beat-up Kentucky team by only 3 touchdowns. A team that can really only utilize one aspect of its offensive game, and you only win 21-0, which that says a lot about the Kentucky defense more than anything. Like, this defense is still pretty good. It's just when your offense isn't there to help you out, it just makes things very difficult, which is why it really sucks that Terry touchdown went down early in this season. So they lose 21-0. Next up for the Wildcats, they will play Missouri this Saturday, a late game, 7:30 p.m. is the kickoff. Kentucky will be back at home. Louisville had a tough matchup as well as they took on what was then, I think, number 3. They've dropped to number 4, apparently, Clemson, 45-10 on Saturday. The Cardinals just having a tough go, as well as Malik Cunningham, 4 of 11, 63 yards, 1 INT. Evan Conley came in, 4 of 11, 44 yards, 1 INT. Other than the yardage, they were on equal terms anyway on Saturday. Javian Hawkins had a big day, 26 carries, averaged 5 yards a carry, 129 yards on Saturday with 1 touchdown for the Cardinals, as he was basically the main highlight for the Cardinals, unfortunately. They lose 45-10, and now you just got to look at what the Cardinals have coming up. They have Virginia coming up, which they have not looked good in a lot of games this season. I think that's a winnable game, 3:30 p.m. this Saturday, as the Cardinals will be at home. Then they go on the road and take on a Miami team here in 3 weeks. They'll go and play them after a bye week. They have NC State on November 16th on the road. They're back at home against Syracuse, and then they close out the season against Kentucky. So I still think this Cardinals team, I feel like they have 3 more wins on their schedule. I really do. At least 3. They could easily win the rest of their games. Sitting at 4-3. Could you imagine if this team, if they were to somehow win the remaining 5 games on their schedule, if this team were to go 9-3 under Coach Satterfield in their first season, that would be remarkable. Or heck, even if they get to 7 or 8 victories, that would be just a story in and of itself. Now, they'd have to find 3 victories in there, which I think Virginia could easily be one of those. I also think that Miami could be one of those on the road. And heck, who's to say they can't beat NC State on the road or Syracuse at home? And the Louisville-Kentucky game at the end of the year is always a crapshoot. And you know Kentucky doesn't have a passing game at this point. So you're kind of already going into that game with an advantage, just knowing that you got to shut down the running game, which just shutting down the running game with that Kentucky offensive line is going to be a tough challenge. But still, you know going into that game that they're not going to have any passing threat unless by some miracle they find somebody in their roster that can pass and get that offense clicking. I don't know. Trevor Rice with you. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM. We are live streaming once again, ESPNRadio1061.com. I will be back next Monday, 5 until 6. The Blandon Birdwhistle High School football game of the week is happening this Friday night, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. It is North Hardin and Central Hardin, 2 8-0 teams going at it. 7:05 is the pregame, 106.1 FM, 1400 AM. Once again, ESPNRadio1061.com. Listen to us online as Bobby Thompson and myself will bring you the call. Enjoy the sports week. We're going to talk about everything that happens this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And hopefully you come back and join me next Monday, 5 until 6. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio.